Welcome to another episode of her Social Takes podcast. I'm Sarah, and this is episode 5. I have been talking about Lively and Justin Baldoni's situation, and so I'm gonna continue with that. We all know that his team released a website with some receipts, and now I'm not gonna get into everything specifically because you guys can go do that yourself. So I'm just gonna really focus on the things that stuck out to me. And then I guess you guys can give me your thoughts. Tell me what you think about it. I do want you guys to remember that I have been saying that this is very much about PR. It has been from the beginning. Has it gotten a little out of hand? I would say so. I definitely think that. And then, of course, each team is supposed to, make their client look as good as possible. So that means even the way that they tell stories. And I think that it's safe to say the optics aren't looking that great for Blake. But I'll, give you my thoughts. So number one, the dates start from January 2019. And all of the subsequent dates after that pretty much they're pretty close together, and a lot of them have receipts to go with it. So that could be emails, that could be text messages, pictures, posts, you name it. It's listed there. So, they definitely did their homework. Another thing is, so Justin, Heath, Wayfair, and Sony, I would say that they were pretty accommodating to Blake, and one might even say overly accommodating, but based on the ways that they are portraying her to have consistently threatened to sabotage the movie if they didn't give her way, I'm not really surprised. I have some questions about what the thought process was, but for instance, she never signed the contract for the movie. Every time Justin's or Wayfair's legal team would reach out to her legal team to get her to sign it, the response back was, I'm not signing it. Or it wasn't even saying I'm not going to sign it. It would be more like asking for more control in the movie. That was the response. And, that was kind of crazy. But then, when they got further into the movie, it definitely was well, I'm not really sure that I can promote the movie. That happened, when she wanted to be able to do editing, and then she wanted to be able to have an extension on the editing, and she wanted to hire her own editor, and it just kept going and going. And pretty much every time she wanted to do something, it was well, I'm not going to promote the movie. And basically it appears that based on the way her contract is set up, she really could just decide not to promote the movie, and that would kind of ruin it for everybody. She did it again when it came to releasing her cut of the movie with Sony this time, I guess. And when we were talking about signing that 17-point demand list, and it's interesting because according to Justin and his team, this is the list that in her complaint she made it seem like was the 30-point list that she had them sign. But according to them, and according to the correspondence, I'm talking about emails between Wayfarer and Sony and Heath and Justin and her lawyers, it's not the same. The 17-point demand letter was signed in, I believe, November. I think it was early November, and they had sent this over as you need to sign this in order for her to come back to work. And there's a conversation between Sony and Wayfarer and Heath and them, and they're saying basically well, the things on this list we're already doing. We need to ask them basically to change the language because it kind of implies that we're not doing it already. And when they asked her lawyers, they basically were this is non-negotiable, basically, if you want her to come back to set. And of course they were bothered because they're this implies things that are not true. But so I mean, and to try to pass that off as the same thing as the 30-point the 30-point list, I do think that's kind of messed up. Of course we're going to see more things later, but also that 30-point list was apparently shared on January 4th at Blake and Ryan's apartment. And that's when that I guess that meeting occurred where the big celebrity Taylor Swift was there. And y'all, I thought it was Hugh Jackman. I was off. Like, oh my goodness. Anyways, y'all were right. My apologies. Who, by the way, seems to be distancing herself, allegedly is distancing herself. I would definitely say her PR team is working, because they're always working. Another interesting point, Ryan's company Maximum Effort was hired by Sony to produce the promotional content for the movie. And I guess they like took over the marketing. So I just think it's interesting because like it was so bad. And then also just the idea that they were trying to get Heath and Justin to take the fall for just how bad everything was, you know, with also literally creating like a letter, like drafting a letter, which in my opinion sounded like it went, they put it through AI. Like to me, it sounds like they took text messages of things that he said to Blake and then put it in AI and were like, hey, make this sound like Justin. But then even throwing in, you know, kind of making fun of the name of his podcast, it was very much giving Nice Pool to me. So I don't like that. And I just feel like that was very audacious. I don't even want to get into like the publicists, to be honest, because particularly like Leslie Sloan and Stephanie Jones, like just messy people, just messy. And I feel like, and I'm going to be honest, and this is just my personal opinion, and I do feel that they were kind of implying that like the publicists were kind of going a little bit rogue. I feel like they were definitely making things worse in the situation, which is crazy because you're supposed to be making things better. But Jennifer Abel, it does seem like she was trying so much to like collaborate with Leslie Sloan, even to the point Leslie Sloan is Blake's publicist, but she seemed to be trying to like work with her a lot, especially when things started going south. Because I want to point out that the articles that were negative about Justin started kind of early, like a good bit before anything negative was really being said about Blake. And, you know, they kind of point out that there was a lot of incorrect information being shared with the press. So I don't know. There is also this thing where I notice a lot of people seem to be very frustrated and upset that Justin was like frustrated and upset. And there was where he found an article about another another director that was being accused of, you know, misconduct on the set. And it was like with an unknown source, right? Like a source as an unknown source. And he had sent that and had been like, I feel like this is what Blake wants to do to me, you know, like kind of, but he was implying that Blake wants to copy that like format of having like a secret source, but lie. He's implying that it's a lie. Okay. I'm just saying what's in there. Okay. Anyway. So I don't know. Based on the conversations, especially like after you look at the ones that Blake shared and then you see like the full context, and in this there's so much more to the conversations to give them actual context. I just don't see a smear campaign here. Now, I don't know what's going to happen if we ever find Jed Wallace. That's all I'm saying, because like, sir, where have you been? But that's, I guess, another story because I can't find the man. But I'm also not like investigative anything, you know. I have what I have. Also, so Justin partnered with the domestic violence advocacy group No More from like the very beginning. So he had already pledged 1% of the earnings from the movie to them. And so I thought that was, you know, I feel like it kind of shows that like he was always trying to make this about awareness, and you can see like conversations between him and them And this was way back. This was even before, Blake had joined the cast. This was always the plan, right? To bring awareness. It was always the plan. Um, and actually, Colleen Hoover wanted him to play Ryle. I know some people were questioning, like, why would he choose to play this? That's what she wanted. She said she could see it. There are text messages saying that. Blake had a number of people fired, including women. And one thing I feel like is not being talked enough about is how often she spoke about her postpartum body and being uncomfortable with it. And I think that when you really look at like the way things were going, you can really see that was like that was a very big concern for her. And I can empathize with that, especially like we're about the same age. I've got 3 kids, she's got 4, and once you start having kids in your 30s, it's very different from when you're in your 20s, even your late 20s. And a lot of us have battled with that and had to like work through that, and most of us are not undressing in front of the public. So I understand that. She was also sick a lot, and again, kids, cesspools, germs. But it did seem like sometimes, I don't know, it just like she eventually, like, they did not end up shooting any of those intimate scenes until January. And she had been asking to wait until the very end, and so they basically ended up doing it, but like she just like was sick and not showing up. And I just feel like I wonder if that like played a part, and I've been kind of like trying to be careful about what I say, because people are always trying to be like, oh, women are just so emotional, especially like postpartum, like it's just your emotions. Like that doesn't mean it's not real. Like your feelings are still valid. But sometimes I wondered if like her hypersensitivity was, for instance, the reason that she thought that Justin was fat shaming her. I'm sorry, but I don't think that happened. If you pay attention to what was going on, like it just wasn't happening. Feelings are valid. Doesn't mean that they're true. They all send a bunch of heartfelt, long messages. I'm like, you needed to cut this in half. There are too many words. All of them. Even Ryan Reynolds, because there is a time when Justin had reached out to Ryan, and he had said that Blake had reached out to his wife, Emily, and that they were trying to, show kind of like a mutual respect and whatnot. And so he leaves him this like what I considered cringe, but cringe only because I felt embarrassed, because I was like, you could tell that someone's trying to be friends, like an adult, and it's like they're nervous, and it was just like I could just kind of feel that. That's what I got from it. Anyway, so he leaves this like message for Ryan, and Ryan responds what it started off, and it seemed so nice and so kind. It seemed like it was going really, really good. And then it seemed like it really got weird very quickly. And I started becoming very, very uncomfortable. Like, oh, is he like basically like, I'm going to be involved. Like, I'm going to be there, and you're lucky to have my wife. Which, listen, it's very nice when your spouse is like very protective of you, and your spouse is very proud of you, and they want people to know that like, yeah, you're lucky to be working with my wife. However, it got a little bit, it got to be a little bit weird, that it was a little bit strange, and it just felt more like something else. And I'll leave that at that. Okay. But based on all of this, I originally was saying that I feel like Blake's team hates her. But now I think that maybe she does not listen to people that are not her. But that's just something that I am starting to suspect, even because it seems like she feels that she knows best in like so many situations, but they're not going good for her. Even when you look at like the marketing for her company, I'm sorry, like I was going to do a breakdown video about that, and I still might, because it's just like, so like, who were you working with? Like, I don't know. And I think that I assumed because she is good friends with Taylor Swift, metaphor was. I don't know. I thought that there would be more. Like I thought maybe, you know, she would pick up some tips from her friend. Because Taylor has a great team. Taylor has a great team. But it seems like that might not be the case. Something else that I thought was interesting is just how much they went over budget for like the wardrobe, because Blake decided that she was going to change everything. Because they had a budget for $185K, okay? And they were prepared to go to $500K for the entire cast, right? So to $500K, and then after, you know, everything was done, I think they said that they would do returns and stuff, and then it would bring it back down to $185K. However, they were over, I think they had spent $615K, and it was only for Blake and Justin. Like, they hadn't even done everybody else yet. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. But they did keep kind of like pointing out over and over again where she would like cause, you know, production to be slowed, or had to stop, or just kind of put like the crew out of it. Because they were describing like what it was like to have to even take all of the wardrobe stuff and go to her home, because apparently even though she was 15 minutes away, they had to bring everything to her. And again, like, this does not mean like somebody being difficult is not an indication that they've never been sexually harassed. However, based on everything that we're seeing being put out together, I don't know. It's just really hard because it doesn't look like what she's saying. And I know a lot of times like we're looking for that power dynamic, and it just doesn't seem to be here. And again, I keep saying that I don't think she planned for it to go this far. I think that she underestimated how Justin would react. And that's kind of unfortunate. So I'm going to be honest. I don't really have like an idea of like what she is going to try to do, or if they're going to want to try to settle. You know, I didn't think that they would actually go to court, or I don't think that she would want to go to court, because I feel like she never planned on that anyway. And I noticed that when the judge had said that like he didn't give the protective order, which people were calling a gag order, but whatever, like he didn't give that protective order. He just told them like, you know, both teams to be ethical. And he said basically if they didn't stop, then they were going to move the date up. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe like Justin's team wants to move the date up. I don't know if that would be maybe to either maybe they would settle and kind of force her to settle and kind of be like, these are the terms. And maybe he doesn't want to settle. Like maybe he wants to defend himself. I don't know. So I guess we'll have to see. I do know that he's about to be on a podcast, and I'm drawing a blank, but he's about to be on a podcast on Monday. So I guess I kind of do want to hear what else he has to say. And I guess I'll keep my eye out and ears open to see, you know, if Blake starts saying anything, or even if her team just starts saying something more. But you guys let me know if you want me to actually do another episode where I'm just like giving the chronological order of things. If you don't want to read the whole document, I can understand that. But for now, I'm going to end here, and I appreciate you all for listening in. Please don't forget to subscribe and, you know, share. Also give me your thoughts and your feedback. Make sure to subscribe to either like, you know, YouTube, Spotify, Substack. On Substack, I am going to start leaving like little voice notes, so you can look out for that. And don't forget to follow me on TikTok, Instagram. I'm all over the place. Until next time.